The XY Advisor podcast is intended for professional financial advisors. This content is created in partnership with our sponsor, Net Wealth Investments Limited, ABN 85090 569 109, AFSL 230 975, and is limited to publicly available information. Before acting on any general advice, you should consider whether appropriate and obtain financial advice from a qualified financial advisor. XY Advisor does not hold an AFS license and does not provide any financial advice or services or endorse any general advice. If a PDS or IM exists, you should obtain a copy and review it thoroughly before making a decision.
AdviceTech. As if it wasn't enough to be across TMDs, alpha, beta, rule of 72, and all the other nuances of financial advice. Now, advisors are expected to be across all the technology options too, and there's so many of them. But never fear, Peter D is here. Join me each week on a journey of discovery through the software and apps on offer for advisors and advice businesses. So let's dive in, fellow advice explorers.
This episode is brought to you by NetWealth, market-leading providers of technology, excellent customer support and expertise to help your wealth business thrive. Rated number 1 for overall satisfaction and value for money by Investment Trends and Chant West's Advised Product of the Year for the last 4 years, NetWealth is here to support you on your advice technology journey. See wealth differently and visit the website to learn how NetWealth can support your advice and wealth business.
Hello and welcome to the XY AdviceTech podcast. Wow, that was a tongue twister there for a minute, folks. I'm Peter Diamantidis, and this week we're going to deep dive into LinkedIn. And joining me here today to give us a bit of a helping hand is an author, a cruise speaker, a commissioner of declarations, and a laptop lifestyler. Thank you so much for joining me on the show, Adam Houlihan. Woo! Welcome.
Hey Peter, thank you. Wonderful to be here with you today. Not on the beach with the laptop right now, in the studio at the office, but yes, don't mind doing a bit of work from the beach every now and then, like every second day.
I feel like I'm underachieving. That feels like an ultimate goal for me. If I can be sitting on a beach with my laptop, you've given me a mission now. I'm going to get there, and we're leading into summer. It's perfect timing. All righty. Well, we're going to pick your brain about LinkedIn in just a minute, but I did want to take a little bit of a moment to get to know you a bit better through your use of technology. So tell me, what is your most used emoji? Do you use emojis at all?
I'm going to say yes, and though I'm going to say is sparingly.
Okay.
I mean that in context of LinkedIn, because LinkedIn's kind of a professional platform, which we're going to get into in a minute. But so yes, I do, and generally speaking, it will usually be the thumbs up one if I use them. However, if it's in a personal context and it's talking to my wife about the kids or whatever, it's the eye roll. So it just depends on the context, but it's those two.
You know what? I don't think I'm using the eye roll enough. You've just inspired me to go to that and tap into my, teenage girl eye rolling that I'm sure I did to my parents. I love it. And so then if you had to, wipe off all the apps off your phone and just keep 3, which 3 do you think you'd keep?
Goodness me, only 3. First of all, it'd take me about 3 hours to wipe them all off my phone. But okay, 3. Well, LinkedIn clearly would be my number 1 go-to. Voxer would be my number 2 because that's kind of how we communicate. We've got a team all over the world, so Voxer's kind of my and Slack. So they're the communication tools we use. So they'd be my 3. So yeah, LinkedIn number 1. Voxer and Slack.
Interesting. So you're using Voxer in addition to Slack?
Yeah. So Slack is, all the channels and all that sort of stuff. But if I'm kind of on the run, I'm often not in the office, traveling to events and things like that. I'll just quickly bang out a voice message to one of the team on Voxer, and they also know if I will check in on Slack all the time during the day. Well, periodically during the day, but if it's what we call blood on the floor moment, then it's hit me in Voxer, and they know I'll respond immediately.
I love that, blood on the floor. But yeah, fingers crossed none of us have too many of those, right, going forward. Yeah, but you never know. It's so unpredictable. Alrighty, let's deep dive into LinkedIn. So listening today, I sort of want to give some context. So we'll have, salaried staff might be listening, whether that's advisors or maybe support staff, but we could also have business owners and even people a bit like myself who, I guess like yourself, speaker, sort of content creator. So there's sort of different types of users in that sense that will be listening. So how do you think they each should be using it differently? Is there a different approach? Let's start with the salaried sort of individual, because I think that's probably a bit unloved in lots of advice given on social media.
Yeah.
If you work for somebody, how can you be using a tool like LinkedIn better?
Exactly, and it is very different to how, say, the business or the key person within the business would use it. So there's really like three things we break it down into, and so that first one you're talking about is very much, and it depends on their role, of course, as well. So the one thing I'd say, Peter, is that everybody in the organisation should have a LinkedIn profile. And they all should have a professional profile, meaning that it's aligned with the business, and that it looks presentable. It's surprising how often we go into sort of larger corporates, and it's just a dog's breakfast of from some of the people and I'm talking about the leadership level teams that have really, really average LinkedIn profiles. So the number one thing is have a professional profile. The second part is really, they should be most likely connecting with and interacting with people that are aligned with the organisation. And that might be service providers to the business, right, that they're working with individually. It might be people that they want to work with, that, let's say, sales teams or things like that. Clearly, that's a very different use as well, because they're going to be more of an outreach and connecting with people for the view of getting into conversations. So the use cases are going to vary depending on the department. But if we had an overarching sort of simple strategy, it's reaching out and connecting with the people that are aligned with the organisation, but also within the world of that particular person. And the other thing, Peter, it's got to be it's one of those very, very interesting anomalies within who actually owns the profile. And there are actual court cases where the individual's profile was deemed to be owned by the organisation, or so the individual, depending on how it was set up and how it's used. So what I would say is, and I know you didn't ask the question, but it's a very, very important topic, is that there has to be really clear guidelines when, say, you're bringing in new team members as to what is the expected use of their LinkedIn profile, and what is it agreed that that the. I'll give you an example. So when people join with us in their employment agreement, there is a section that clearly states that, yes, you're going to use the background image banner, of the company. You agree to put a position description about the organisation. You agree to act in certain ways professionally, and you agree for your profile to be tagged as part of our company profile. Little things like that. Yeah. Now, if you're talking about salespeople as an example, then you get into some slippery slopes of what is expected and what is ultimate ownership. So we don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but it's just something that all organisations at the level that a lot of your listeners are going to be at today to be very wary of and get some good advice on, and build it into the hint here, build it into your employment agreements as to what is expected, and including code of conduct. You really, really don't want people in the organisation being, might have a very strong opinion, say, for example, in a certain topic that is detrimental to the vision and mission of the organisation.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we can't ask them to change their opinion. We can just ask them not to air that opinion.
Sure.
That makes sense.
I think the other thing, I think the other side of, or the flip side of that is true for a lot of people maybe working, it could even be a small business, but even a bigger one, is they just don't post at all. Like they're so fearful of all of that, they just don't post at all. And I think, if you're a leader of a team or, run a business, then I feel like it's an untapped resource is the extent to which your staff can engage with the public. I think that's very untapped, and their insights are so different. And so perhaps it's just about better guidance, perhaps.
100%, Peter. It is all about guidance and having, rules of the game. And let's face it, it is a professional platform. But again, if I use our organisation as an example, our team that are in sales, they have a very different use of and allowance of what they can and can't do, including creating their own content. But they have to create that content within a guideline. But our other team members, that are in our marketing team and IT team and coaches and things like that, quite often, we're encouraging them to share the company content or pose an opinion on that content, but also to be interacting and engaging on our clients' content where it's appropriate. So there's very different use cases depending on where in the what the role is that those people are doing, and that's why it really needs a very clear kind of outline as to, hey, in the employment agreement, this is kind of we call it the rules of the game, but it's just the guideline, really, as you said.
And it is, and it doesn't need to be, really, really strict. I know there's some very large institutions that may have people listening to this podcast who, you're allowed to post the marketing edited post that everybody posts on the thing. And that's it, really. Like it's really prescriptive. It doesn't need to be that. You could have a piece of content that you or somebody else has written in your business, and then your team can just share it with their take. Oh, check out page number 2 I was fascinated by. Or, they can give their window in, whatever they would say in a conversation with somebody, they can do that way of introducing the piece of content. So I just think, like you say, have a meeting where you just debate the content. Talk about it. What was interesting? Right. Well, that sounds like that's your post. I think we can train teams to comfortably and with a great deal of thought post on these things without it being thou shalt not,
100%. And in all honesty, and you are correct, there are organisations that get lock it down that tight. The interesting part, though, is that quite often their social presence becomes actually pretty boring. It's just
horrendous,
and it's quite obvious that. Well, do you know what, Peter? It actually comes across more that the team just don't care.
Yeah.
Because, it just looks like they're not really interacting, or you can almost tell that their responses are pre-scripted, or as opposed to, have some guidelines, but allow them their own personality. It's going to do the company or business a lot more value if they, if they're allowed to have a little bit of, light and shade in the way that they express an opinion.
So in terms then, you just made me realise that something that business owners could do for their staff, they really want to make this sort of push of, all right, let's just lift our LinkedIn presence, at least lift the sort of quality of what we've got on there. When we actually did a couple of years, it must have been just before COVID, I think, we did a team strategy day, but during the day we had a photographer come and take both posed and sort of animated photos of the team. So it meant they all had proper headshots, and none of them ever had that before. These are admin and support stuff. They just never had a headshot before. So, and that doesn't need to be expensive. You can do that, and suddenly the photo on there looks like something actually professional.
It does. And, there's even photographers around now that have created businesses of doing headshots, but they do them remotely, just the tech that is available now. We had some of our team's headshots done from a photographer in the UK. We're based here in Australia.
Wow.
And it was all done, yes, the team members had to download an app onto their phone, and then certain things happened, and And then a day later, they just sent back these amazing headshots from the other side of the world. So, you don't even have to be saying, oh, well, we've got to wait until our corporate day or whatever where everyone's in the office. The tech exists now to do almost everything remotely.
That's fantastic. And I've written that down because we've got some virtual staff. We all operate virtually, but most of us in Australia, but we do have some overseas. So, and I really wanted to get some good headshots for them. So you've just given me a winning idea. Thank you. That's fantastic. So then, okay, so that's for the salary. Then of course we've got, the either more senior personnel, business or owner, thought leader. Let me ask you this. What's your take on the business page on LinkedIn? Like, is that worth doing at all? Is it really, it's not worth your time? What are your thoughts?
Interesting, Peter. If you'd asked me this question 2 years ago, I'd give you the complete polar opposite of what I'm going to give you now. Now, I'd say yes, every organisation, no matter the size, should have a company profile, a company page, as they call it, because there's a lot of functionality that has been added to company pages that was not there before that now makes it almost a prerequisite. I'll preface that by saying, provided you're really looking to use your company's LinkedIn presence, in a lead generation tool.
Right.
Now, we talked about the team. Obviously, that's a different thing. But now the business itself, and I'll again be fair and say not every single business is going to want to use their profile for that purpose, but I can guarantee you 90% of them will. Then yes, you 100% you're going to have a company page. It's going to have to be active. You've got to be building followers to the page. So there's a little bit of work to do. And of course, the content, the big mistake that I see all the time, Peter, is people are, just their content on their company page is often done by, say, the marketing team.
Right.
Understandable. Or an outsourced marketing team or whatever. And all they're really doing is adding links to blog posts and stuff like that, that's on the company website. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with adding links to blog posts and things like that. It just shouldn't all be that. It needs to have a variety. You've got to give the company, the organisation, a personality and a reason for people to want to go to the page.
It's interesting you say that because I'm just reflecting on that for financial advice because, of course, it's fair to say we're not the most interesting or sexy industry out there, right? So, bringing personality to these things is not necessarily natural, but you've just made me realize some of the things I love seeing on company pages, but even on websites is a bit of the behind the scenes, a bit of the, well, how actually do you get that done? And that's not something that in financial advice we ever really share. Like we'd never really show, well, this is all the graphs we might look at if we're trying to check this out for you. Or this is, those sort of things actually can deeply connect people to either your business or yourself, but also establish that expert status because it's like, oh, goodness, that looks really complicated. Like, wow, you guys really know your stuff,
Yeah, and it's the age-old thing, isn't it, Peter? It's, we're often blinded by the fact of how good we are at whatever we do and thinking, well, everybody knows that. The reality is that they don't. And you're right. That's the type of content that people actually really like. It's just seeing that behind the scenes sort of view of things. It could be it could also be as simple as how your team researches. Obviously, especially in financial services, there's a lot of research involved, a lot of compliance, that type of thing. And whilst I know we have clients in financial services, so reasonably across how much time and effort is actually put into maintaining your level of currency on what's going on through all the point system and all that type of thing. But actually, that's quite interesting stuff. It's we want to know that our financial advisor is on his or her game. So as simple as that. Hey, it's blocked out half the day today to get up to speed on XYZ. That's and put a bit of personal spin on your thoughts on that's actually content that people go, wow, yeah, didn't realise you guys have to do that. No wonder you charge me so much.
Well, and it's interesting you say that. I mean, XY, the podcast we're on, XY have 2 days a year where it's a whole day of CPD virtually, and they sort of do that so we can, sort of go hard and really knock it out. And I might share, me watching that from I sort of set up the living room, and, I airstream it to the TV, and so you can all see it happening. But it hadn't occurred to me to almost on the business page go, this is us keeping up to date for our work with you, like really positioning it that way.
Exactly. And imagine if you got, all of your team, as you said, they're all sort of remote. But if everybody on those 2 days, kind of took a selfie or someone taken of them, so there's the way you do it, where you stream it onto your TV, and there's someone else, in their pajamas or whatever people are comfortable with, of course. But where, how interesting would that then be to see, hey, we're all on the same page, we're all doing the same thing, but we're all doing it in our own way. That people would definitely resonate with that type of content, and it's the type of content people just never, organisations should say, just never really think, and that will be interesting to people. And I guarantee you, every time that will be the ones that get the most traction and interaction.
Yeah, that is, and when in finance, we're particularly light on with the whole experiential stuff, so we need to sort of tap into our Heston Blumenthal and make this stuff sort of more interesting and think about the experience more. Because I do think, that yes, it's nerdy, but it's really interesting to other people. Like, oh, is that what it's like? Like it's fascinating. And there's lots of people that have a secret wish to understand more about finance and how we do things. So, why not share?
And I think the one thing we should talk about too, Peter, is especially in financial services, is of course there is a degree of structure around what can and can't be said.
Yep.
When you're talking about financial advice. However, when you're talking about the backstory of how the organisation has a life and a team and stuff like that, that's open. We can say and do as we please, because it's the reality of what's going on. So often, when we're working with some of our clients in that space, it's always initially the conversation goes down, oh, well, I've got to be so careful in what I say, and I can't do this. That's fine. Let's just leave that out, because nobody gives a rat's butt about it anyway. Just frankly, what they want to know is the life and the behind the scenes of the organisation. So let's go super light on that stuff. Yes, of course, when we share it, stay within the guidelines. Don't give advice, so to speak. But let's have more of our content really in the stuff that is interesting, and it's got a bit of variety to it. And when I say variety, that's also across different posting concepts. So you've got standard status posts, you've got posts with images, you've got short videos, you've got newsletters, all these different things. So the company page needs to have a bit of a variety, as does the profile of the key. So maybe the founder, the CEO, whoever's the face of the organisation. It's the exact same rules apply, just content might be slightly different.
It's interesting. So you mentioned newsletter there, and I think it's something that, like, as users of LinkedIn, we might have sort of come across it, that somebody's, there's a notification, somebody's asked you to become, but we probably aren't as aware of it as an actual function that we could take aware of. Do you want to just run us through, like, how that's different to just a post, and why that might have some benefits?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a really important. It's reasonably recent that company pages could have its own newsletter. Us as individuals, we've been able to have our own newsletter for some time. But now, I give it again using us as an example. So I have my own personal newsletter, and then we have a company newsletter. Of course, the content's just a little bit different. Mm-hmm. But in the concept of what we're talking about here, it's definitely so every company page can have one newsletter. And the value of the newsletter is its long-form content, as opposed to everything else is generally very short, punchy type of content. But also people can subscribe to your newsletter. So you definitely should be reaching out to your clients and say, hey, we've got this newsletter on LinkedIn, click here and get that notification, things like that. But so you can actually have a subset of clients or interested parties that follow your newsletter, and the more that LinkedIn sees that you're building followers to that particular piece of content, the more inclined they are to make sure that those people subscribe, clearly get notified by notification on LinkedIn. Clearly, it's coming up in their feeds, but also by they send you an email saying, "Hey, XY's just released a new newsletter today. Here it is." So they're actually helping you get it out there. But also behind the scenes, they're also working out who are the people who are subscribing to it, who are the people who are interacting on it. And they're starting to show that to a wider community of people beyond just your followers or connections or anything like that.
Okay.
Because what LinkedIn's trying, well, not even trying, they've actually been very successful at, is trying to ensure we all see the type of content we really like. There's a number of ways you can actually determine or have a say in what shows up in your feed. Most people don't do it or are unaware of it. But there's also a way LinkedIn's kind of, we've all heard of, in Facebook terminology, lookalike audiences. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of similar to that concept where it's like, okay, I'm not connected to these people, I don't know these people, but LinkedIn knows that the people who I am connected to and who are interacting on my content, that these other people out there are kind of the same type of people, and it's in their interest to at least show it to them to see whether they like it and want to engage on it. And, of course, that helps the organisation to expand its reach organically.
Okay. And is this is outside of, I know I've followed some hashtags on LinkedIn. It took me a while to discover those, and it meant that changed my feed a bit. So it's doing that sort of more organically behind the scene. It's saying, well, that sort of thing that you're producing, I reckon those people over there would find that valuable, as opposed to where we all are quite prescriptive about our, gee, I liked that, or somebody commented, or I'm connected to them. It's actually a bit broader than that of what people can see of your content. Okay.
So your company page can attribute up to 3 hashtags to the page.
Yep.
So it kind of it gives people an idea of what the organisation is all about. On your personal profile, you can do up to 5 with what's called creator mode, and you should.
Okay.
But also like you did, you can go out and say, okay, this particular hashtag, I like that. That's the content I'm interested in. And by the way, if you like to see all my content show up in your feed, look for the hashtag Adam's View and follow that, and then you're guaranteed to start seeing all my stuff.
Okay.
Same thing for the company. You should have a company hashtag, and you share that on every piece of content that you create. I'll give you a quick little case study of why that's important. Some time ago now, I had somebody reach out to, hey, have a chat about what you guys do. I'll cut to the chase. They became a client, and after that, I said, how did you find out about us? He said, somebody just told me about your content, and I looked on your profile, I found it. I saw you had this hashtag Adam's View. I clicked on it, and before I knew it, I'd binged 6 hours of your content, and over a weekend. In my head, I was thinking, wow, you kind of find better things to do on a weekend. You spend 6 hours on my content.
Blessed, but really?
Thank you. But so the point being that hashtags really, really important on 2 fronts. One, for you to make sure you see the right type of content in your feed, and 2, for outbound, when the organisation is, and the key people who are creating content personally within the organisation are using hashtags very strategically.
Interesting. Okay. And so that's something that's different than just tagging the company page. This is a hashtag as well. And so that's sort of making it a bit broader than that. It's almost becoming its own theme then. You're becoming your own topic in that sense. And okay, powerful. So let's talk about then the profile, the LinkedIn profile. There's got to be so many features on there that you just can't believe people don't use. Are there a few of those that stand out for you? They're like, would you all please just turn these things on or add some information to them? What are most people missing on their LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, Peter, you'd be really surprised to know that this ballpark, 850 million people on LinkedIn, and less than 5% of that 850 million people actually have a profile that makes any sense. What I mean by makes any sense, I mean makes any sense algorithmically to LinkedIn, whereby they can understand the flow of the profile and therefore actually can be shown in searches by LinkedIn. So that gives you an idea of how well overall we do in that space. But you're right. There's the 80-20 rule. There's a few little things that will get you 80% of the traction, and what they are is three key things. Well, actually four. There's the background banner image. You've got to have a professional image. You've got to have something that if you've got nothing, there is a placeholder there. But you can think about it. Imagine I came to your website and you just had a placeholder at the top of the website. Yeah. That tells me you just don't really care about your website. Same as on your LinkedIn profile. If there's not something there, it just says you don't care. The second part is, of course, as you alluded to earlier, is a good professional profile image. And now, almost always, people have a profile image, but there's a big difference between a good one and a bad one. A bad one can be a number of things. So if you're doing any of these things, you have time to update. So if your profile image is 20 years out of date, you need to update it. Now, and reason why is that really important? Because at the end of the day, what we're using our profile for is to get in conversations with people, whether that's live. Like imagine this, Peter. Imagine I've connected with one of your advisors on LinkedIn, had a chat. Great, I'm going to come in next week and let's talk about what we can do together. And I walk in the door and the person that greets me there is 20 years older than the person I had in my head on the profile image. There's an immediate disconnection. There's immediate creation of distrust.
Yeah.
So it's a bigger issue than what most people think. Equally, if put on a bit of weight since your last photo, or you've lost a lot of weight since your last photo, again, there's just this, it's got to be current. For the ladies, often, change of hairstyle, not so much just a little change in style, but if, say, complete change of colour, nothing like that. Update your photo, guys. Keep it, So that's number two. Number three is the professional headline. That's what you write about yourself directly under your profile. You've got about 240 characters of text to put in there. There's lots of different ways to do that, but one of the worst ways is to allow LinkedIn to just put as a default your which they will if you don't put something better there, is whatever your position description is. So it might say, CEO of Promise Global. That's not the title I use, but it's that's a massive waste of a huge opportunity to get people to have a sense of who you are and what you're about. And the last one is hashtags. As we said, there's a thing on your profile. Everybody's got access to it. Doesn't matter whether you've got a free account or premium accounts or anything like that. Everybody has it, called Creator Mode. And you just have to go to your dashboard, and at the very top of it, you'll see it says Creator Mode on or off. Now, if it's off, then it doesn't give you the opportunity to attribute up to 5 hashtags to your profile. So, and that is the number one. If you said out of all those things, what's the one thing that the highest majority of people are not using? It's that one.
Okay. And it's something that what I liked about doing it, so when I came across, and I'm pretty sure actually I came across it because I attended one of your live web events and I just went, oh, okay, I better do that. And because I am an opinionated person, so I do have things that I talk about frequently, is that when you're forced to come up with 5 things, it really gets you to think about your messaging. It really gets you to think about, well, what actually are the things that I want to be known for? And I think that's a good process, right? Because it forces you not to just be sort of blathering about anything. You'll be prescriptive because you've put that down there as this is what I'm focusing on. Of course, it means you can post on something else, but I think it's a good thought process for anybody to really sort of focus on, well, what do I want to be known for on a social media platform like LinkedIn? So it really sort of pushes you to consider that carefully.
Yeah, it does. And the other thing is it also will help a great deal in because what LinkedIn is trying to do is they're trying to make an alignment between what you put there in your hashtags and overall on your profile, the type of people you're connecting with. And by the way, again, if you, I know you didn't ask me, I'm going to give it to you anyway, was one of the big mistakes people make, the number one mistake, I believe, is accepting connection requests from just everyone and anyone.
Right.
So, it's kind of like that dopamine hit. It's like, oh, somebody wants to connect with me. That's awesome. I'm going to accept. You're far better off to be very selective in who you're connected with, because that's what's happening. It's LinkedIn's looking for this three-way alignment. What your profile says you're all about, who you're connecting with, and what's the content you're actually creating and sharing or interacting on. When they can see that alignment between those three, then it goes clearly, okay, well, within reason, we know who your tribe is, even if you don't.
Yeah.
Now, if your hashtags and all your profiles all over the place, and you're connecting with anyone and everyone, and today you're talking about topic A, and tomorrow it's topic B, and then it's about what you did on the weekend and all that stuff, they just go, oh my goodness, I don't know what the heck's going on here. Let's just not show Peter's profile to anyone.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
And actually that brings up an interesting question, and I'm a good example of this. So as somebody, I own and run a financial advice practice, but I also talk to advisors, about AdviceTech. So it's an interesting, how do you handle that when you've sort of got, two sides to your audience? You've got the public or your niche or, whoever you're talking to in that way, and they could be on LinkedIn, but also there's your peers, in the industry. How do you think is the best way to handle that in terms of either the hashtags or just your content generally?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one of the ones that's actually is easy to resolve, but most people don't go about it the right way. The reality is you've got to pick one of them as far as the what you do on your personal profile, and then of course you can. And I'll give you an example. I've often had people say to me, "Oh, but I've got 3 businesses," and I go, "Yeah, pick one." What about the other 2? So I don't care about the other 2. Pick one. You've got to stay within a lane. You can't be all things to all people on your personal profile. However, of course, on your company page, you can have a whole different. So your company page can be, for a different audience. So as you said, either your clients on one, peers on the other, but also you can have what's called showcase pages. Showcase pages are like a subset of your company page. So you can have as many showcase pages as you like. And therefore, in your example, in that case for you, I would be recommending that, your personal profile is very much about your clients.
Mm-hmm.
Your company page mostly about your clients as well, but then have some showcase pages that might be for peers and other subsets that you think are relevant. Now, word of warning, of course, the more of those you create, the more content you've got to create, because each one then has to have its own followers and its own content and whatever. Yeah, okay. So be careful what I'll give you the solution, but the solution may be a lot of work in front of you.
Absolutely. One of the things that I sort of accidentally came across as one of the features on the profile actually is the voice where you can record how to say your name. And as somebody with a ridiculous name to say, I've had so many comments of gratitude from people like MCs at events, because, I'll speak and the poor people have to introduce me. And they've commented because they hadn't seen it very often, that not many people have actually turned that on where you just say your name. And even a simple name, I think it's worth doing. Like, it's them hearing you say your name so they know how to introduce you or they know how to refer to you. It's powerful.
It is, and that's what it was. Is exactly what it was created for. However, there's 2 use cases for almost everything on LinkedIn. So in the context where you do have a name that's somewhat difficult to pronounce, like yours, 100% you should be using it for that. Where that's not necessarily the case, like if your name is Jack Jones, as an example, then there's still a use case for it. Even though, it's not going to be, nobody's kind of going to get Jack Jones wrong, but you actually have, you've got a good 10 seconds or so of recording there. So as an example, go and have a look at mine. And of course, I know you're going to share the link to my profile for everyone. Go and have a look at that part Peter's talking about, which you'll see it looks like a little microphone next to your name, or my name in this case. And you'll see that when I use it, I actually kind of use it like a call to action. It's, hey, this is what we're about. This is what I want you to do next. I just do it within 10 seconds. So there's two very powerful ways to use that feature. That's
a great tip. And I think, that's the case for lots of things, isn't it? Where you've just got to utilize it for what works for you. Just because it was created for, version A doesn't mean that you need to use that going forward. And LinkedIn is one of those things that has a lot of elements, doesn't it? I mean, even just to the profile, there is so many places you could fill things in. I guess the obvious thing people do is their work history, which I get, but there's probably other elements there that people don't use. I'm betting that the featured section is probably one that people don't necessarily set up well. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%. It's the featured section is an optional, so it's not there by default. You've got to go and activate it, and of course, lots of people are just not even aware that it's there. But it allows you to add video content, links to stuff on your website or anywhere else, and the value of it is it's very visual on your profile. So again, we use that featured section as a really intrinsic part of setting up a profile. And if you went to my profile, and you'll see if you clicked on you'll see there's like a video where my profile image is, and it gives you like sort of 20 seconds of me talking. But what you'll see is in it, I say, go to the featured section. If you read the professional headline below that, it says, go to the featured section. If you do that one you talked about with the name pronunciation, go to the featured section. Okay. So every part of those things in the profile, we're driving people exactly to that featured section. Now, again, if we want to talk about how not to use the featured section, is don't put more than 3 links there.
Okay.
One to 3, and I'll be fair, Peter, in saying this is my opinion.
Sure.
And anyone else can have their own. The worst example of this that I've seen is someone had 78 links in their featured section, which is just crazy to think people are going to swipe right all the time.
Right.
So that's not going to happen. So you want it just very in-your-face visual. That's 3 kind of format well on a desktop view. On a mobile view, it's just going to see 1. So and you can scroll, but 3 maximum, because that's as many as you're going to get in a good view on a desktop view.
That's really helpful, because it's I know, and this is one of those things. Tech's so interesting, and we don't schedule enough of our updates on this stuff. And I don't mean posts. I mean, maybe once in a quarter we should just go into our profile and freshen it up. Like, just schedule these things to just keep it up to date. Because what happens is we let it go, and then we are either going to announce something, or we've got a new book. Authors, something, and you look at your profile and go, oh no. That's really out of date, right? And Exactly. You've been wasting all of that engagement. I mean, listeners, something you might find surprising, I think some of the biggest networks or followings any of us have is actually on LinkedIn. I know mine is. My numbers on LinkedIn are much higher than they are anywhere else. We're probably underutilizing that. If we don't keep it up to date, the profile, then people are seeing stuff that is no longer really reflecting who we are and what we're doing.
Yeah, it was interesting. You are 100% correct. And a good example of that is I was looking at a profile of somebody that was I was asked to have their profile and give my opinion on, who was a branding expert. And in the background banner that we talked about earlier, he had it was referencing an event that he was hosting in 2019, and had the date on there. And I was like, really? You really want me to share an opinion on that? Is this not obvious?
Yeah. Absolutely. But it is, I just think, honestly, unless you schedule it, these things don't happen, do they? We've just got to make it.
We always say to our clients, look, every 90 days, time to just have a check-in, check it out, make sure everything's relevant, everything's topical. There's new features coming out all the time. So we're getting people to just make sure they're across all these new features that are there. Every 90 days is a good cadence to do that.
That's a good tip. Now, in terms of then automation, now talk to me about posting, the tools out there that can post into LinkedIn, those sort of things. Do you think they're positive, negative, can be detrimental? How do you find them in terms of helping people get a bit more regular with their posting in LinkedIn?
It's a good question, and there's two sides to that coin. So there's things like where you might schedule content, and that's fine, no problem with that at all. And there's lots of tools like, say, Hootsuite, Buffer, Meet Edgar. LinkedIn don't have their own scheduling tool like Facebook does, and look, there's a lot of this conjecture. Some people say, you use scheduling tools, it won't get as much traction. Call BS on that one. We've tested that across many posts, across many profiles. That's fine.
Okay.
So in that context, good. There's other ones that kind of aggregate content from other places and says, we can automatically post this to Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever. Those are not good. Because generally speaking, you can't put any context to it. It's all it's doing is pulling in the data information that's on some other website or blog or whatever it might be, and also it's going to be sharing a link to that particular piece of content. And LinkedIn do not like content that takes you off the platform in most cases. So those types of tools definitely, I would say, steer away from.
And I just can I just hold you there, because I think just in case the listener missed that, what you're talking about there is a website link in your post, which I think people do intuitively. Like it's something that lots of people will just go, hey, go here. But what you're saying is LinkedIn don't like you doing that.
No, they're going to suppress the content, meaning they're not going to stop you posting it. They're just going to make sure pretty much nobody sees it.
Yep.
So really the type of content they're looking for is content that keeps people on the platform, creates conversation on the platform, that type of thing. So sharing a link to a blog article or whatever is rarely ever going to excite people to do that. There's we could be here all day, Peter, talking just about content strategies, but I know we don't have that time. But the type of so just to your question of those type of scheduling tools are definitely a no-no. And of course, the real no-no is the ones that are automating, connecting with people and messaging people, stuff like that. LinkedIn really do not like those ones.
And it's just, there's a theme with, we've just chatted with somebody about Facebook, and there's a theme here. These tools are about connection. So that means you actually need to connect. That's the name of the game here. Collecting faceless strangers is not connecting. So that's not, and it's easy to get caught up in the vanity metrics of that, isn't it? It's like, well, you've got, 10,000, 40,000, however many followers, but how many of them act? How many of them actually interact with you? It's, that's telling to me. That's the thing I'm more interested in.
It is. And, it's funny. I have to say I see less and less of it now, thankfully. But we've all seen it. There's people who have in their profile saying, their name and 8,700 connections. Well, who cares? It's like, or 15,000, whatever the number. The fact you put a number says you don't care about your connections, you care about the number of connections. So it's a real red flag. So if somebody sends me a connection request and they've got that in their profile, it's gone.
Yeah. And it's an interesting lesson, I think, that is hard when you're first going down this path, and you see it a lot on Instagram. I had a quick look at your Instagram page there, and you've got a high number of followers on Instagram. But when you look through your posts, you're also getting spammed by people who clearly want you to market product all the time. So, that's not connection either. So, we've got to learn that it's finding your tribe. That's our job here. And if your tribe is just 100 or 200 of very highly connected people, that is a huge win. You've done super well.
It is. And look, it used to be different, but these days, LinkedIn's not impressed by how many connections you have. By the way, the maximum anybody can have, doesn't matter who it is, whether it's Richard Branson or Peter, 30,000.
Okay.
Now, I know that sounds like a lot. However, there is a cap. So you want to make sure, even if you've got 30,000 like I do, you want to make sure that they are the right type of people. However, that makes no difference. Now, I could have 30,000 and let's just for an argument's sake, say you had 500.
Mm-hmm.
Then it makes no difference now in the level of traction you can get on your content to what I can get. You can get as many if you go about your content strategy the right way. I better put that parenthesis around it. If you have a properly structured content strategy, the numbers of your connections are irrelevant.
Yeah, it's hard to get our heads around that. And in finance, we are about numbers. It's easy to get caught up in numbers. But I think
there are good numbers and bad numbers, right, as we know.
Absolutely. So. And I think ultimately we all know impact is really the measure, right? And so whatever your chosen impact is, that's the thing you need to be measuring yourself on. One of the things I don't know, how much you would be able to share or be aware of, what's down the track? Like, what are LinkedIn working on? What are the things that are coming up in the future that we can look forward to or look out for?
Yeah, wouldn't we all love the crystal ball on that one? What I'll say is that they don't tend to be super open about that. Mm-hmm. However, what I can share with you is that new features go through some certain stages of rollout, which is called alpha, beta, and 3 levels of release. Alpha means it may not actually go to full utilization across the globe. And funnily enough, quite often Australia is picked as a country to test alpha products. And you could look at that in 2 ways. A lot of people say, that's cool. Australia must be an important market for them. It's actually the reverse. It's deemed as, well, we're so far away from everywhere else and we're such a little...
If we mess it up, it doesn't matter.
If it stuffs up, who cares about Australia? But funnily enough, we often get first release on these things. What they're working on right now, which is in sort of probably just come out of alpha. And in fact, even just through beta, it's now into rollout. Is believe it or not, a podcasting called LinkedIn Audio.
Okay.
So it's now I wouldn't say it's as functional as I would never recommend replacing your traditional podcast with LinkedIn Audio. However, you can now create an audio version of interaction with people directly on LinkedIn, which in certain cases is great. The downside is you can't syndicate it across multiple other platforms. You can't store it outside of LinkedIn, that type of stuff. So, but if you're kind of new into podcasting, it can give you a bit of a taste of what podcasting is like.
I guess it's probably, is that almost like an audio version of the newsletter? Is that sort of what it's?
No, it's you think of Clubhouse.
Okay.
Remember Clubhouse? It was the next biggest thing that was ever going to exist that nobody even remembers now.
Yeah.
That's the easiest comparison. It's kind of like LinkedIn's version of Clubhouse, but directly on LinkedIn. What I will say is, what's really the future? I can guarantee you what the you don't need a crystal ball for is that it's all about content. So it's gone are the days where it's all about he or she who has the most connections and all that sort of stuff. LinkedIn wants to be the place that we all come for really high quality content on subjects that we're interested in. So what they're really working on is improving the functionality of us being able to have some say in what the type of content that we see, and being able to flag content we don't like and signal content we do like, which improves the quality of stuff we see on their feeds. Mm-hmm. So interestingly enough, though, you'd be I think you'd be really surprised to know that of the, if you said, exactly how do you create a content strategy that LinkedIn loves and is going to give you this massive amount of organic reach and everything like that, it's less than 1% of all the people on LinkedIn have any idea of how to, or that are at least even implementing a strategy like that. So
wow.
What I would say is it is a target-rich, untapped resource if you get it right, where the organic reach that you can get to the right type of people, and they're putting in place all the metrics so you can see with your content, like who are the people who are seeing it, what industries are they in, what locations are they in, what companies are they from. You can see all this information on your content now, and that is the future. And so the game is going to be won by the content creators that create really high-quality content. That high-quality content is not often promotional content. It's not like selling a product and service. Of course, there is a place for that as well, but the real long-term, it's not even long-term, it's here right now. It's just that only less than 1% of the 850 million people on there understand it and utilize it. But that is the future.
And I think that's probably something you can't say about most of the platforms, right? So most of them you can't say that the majority of users aren't really utilizing it to its full extent. You'd probably say the reverse. You'd probably say there's, most people are just pushing stuff out and there's high, whereas, and I've heard that from a few different places. LinkedIn is this thing that people just haven't tapped into. And that's okay if it's not your niche, but that means that people that work aren't your niche. And that might be the case, but I would argue most advisors, work with people with role jobs or business owners, or like most of them are going to be on there. And if not, it's a great thing to even introduce people to. Gee, I noticed you don't have a LinkedIn profile. Why not? This is something that for most people there would be value in that. I think that's an interesting insight that it'll make everybody, I think, as they listen, question where your effort lies, and making sure that you just sort of don't spread yourself too thin. Why not dive into something and do it really well? And maybe LinkedIn might be that, for the listener.
Yeah. And just to maybe expand on that a little bit, even if potentially your main market is not on LinkedIn, and in financial advisory, I can guarantee you in 95% of the cases that will be.
Yeah.
But even if they weren't, it's still a place where you can build a lot of credibility by creating this great content and getting a lot of interaction and engagement there, so that when you are having people check you out, interesting thing, if you Google, none of us do it ever, do we, Peter? We'll Google our own names. We never do that. But I guarantee you, if you were to do that today, that the number one thing that will come up in that search will be your LinkedIn profile. The only reason ever where it won't be is if you have a personal website. Like, I don't mean a company-wide. So for me, we have our company website, Prominence Global. I also have, for my speaking roles, a personal website, which is at bullhand.com. So that will often come up first.
Yep.
But from the higher majority of people, if ever our name gets Googled, our LinkedIn profile is going to come up number one. And really, if you think about it, if somebody's interested in reaching out to you for something as important as financial advice, they're going to do their research. They're going to check you out. And how do we do that? We do a Google search. And the first thing they're going to see is your LinkedIn profile. They're going to click on it, and if it looks like rubbish, then you kind of come across that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's probably something we underrate, isn't it? That you might have a business website and it might have your headshot and your description, but there's a good chance that won't be where they're sent first. If they Google you, it's probably going to be your LinkedIn profile. So why not give it, the attention it deserves, and make sure not only does it look great, of course, but also that it represents you, that you're really capturing, who you are on your LinkedIn page.
Yeah. And if I could, again, I'll just really quickly give you another little case study on that. Recently, one of our clients contacted me and said, he's a mortgage broker. And he said, I just want a contract to do a $5 million finance for a commercial property right from LinkedIn. I didn't have to do anything. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, when I spoke to this person, I asked them, how did you find out about me? And they said, well, I actually spoke to a friend of mine who recommended one of your competitors and gave me a link to their LinkedIn profile. When I went on there, it had a link to your profile as someone that you should also check out. And yours just looked so much more appealing than the person that I was personally referred to. I ended up coming to you instead of them. So there you go. That's the difference, power of a professional presence on LinkedIn, where it wasn't even the search for him; it was for someone else.
That's such a good tip. I feel like that's the representation. In the old days, it's like if you had a ratty business card that got scrunched up in your pocket and you handed that over to somebody. That's what we're doing if we're not keeping our LinkedIn profile lickety-split and particularly personable, and sincere and capturing who we are, then you are not doing yourself any favors. It's essentially, for most people, it's probably the closest they'll ever have to a personal website.
Exactly. Yeah. And to be honest, Peter, it's actually more SEO optimized than what your personal website could ever be. So it's, if someone said to me, I've only got the budget to do one or the other, I'd say do your LinkedIn profile all day.
Yeah, that's good advice. Good advice. Anything we've missed? I feel like we've covered a lot.
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot. I can guarantee you when we jump off this, I'll go, we should have talked about that. But I think, look, overall, we've covered a lot of ground. And hopefully it's been of value to everyone tuning in.
Look, I think undoubtedly, the listeners are going to want to find out more about you, Adam. So we're going to include Adam's website link in the show notes, along with his LinkedIn profile, which in this particular instance, I think would be the first place everybody should look. There's a lot of lessons just from looking at what Adam's doing in his profile. I'd also personally encourage you to attend one of his free web events. Once you follow him on LinkedIn, then he does mention those as they're coming up, and it's constant updates about what's changing, what's new in LinkedIn, but also reminding you of behaviors or, strategies and content strategies and things like that. I've found them really valuable. So I'd encourage all of you to do that too. Thank you so much for joining us, Adam. I've got huge amounts of notes I've written down as we've been doing the interview. So if nobody else finds it valuable, I certainly did. So thank you so much for your time.
It's an absolute pleasure. Absolutely enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll do it again sometime in the future. With
a new update. Done. I'll see you then. So, could it be that you are one of the 99% of LinkedIn users that aren't really utilizing the tool to its full capability? Did anything we were talking about really prompt you to think? Please share your insights on the XY platform. Maybe even, share your LinkedIn profile on there and ask for some feedback. We're all here to help each other out. The XY platform was a great way to do that. So be sure, ask for assistance, ask people to share their profiles so you can all take a look, and certainly take a look at Adam's and get some insights from there. And in terms of my thoughts, I guess what I would say is, it was a bit of a eye-opening moment for me when, you realize LinkedIn really is your personal website. This is really the best version you're going to have of your own website on you and what you like to talk about. And that's why it's so important that it truly reflects you. To give you some insight, you probably have already seen a theme with the interviews I do on the pod. I do this wacky introduction. And those where I come up with all sorts of different backgrounds about the individual I'm interviewing and some, things that might create more interest. And that is either easy or incredibly difficult depending on how well people's LinkedIn profiles and other social media profiles really represent them as both professionals but also as human beings. And so sometimes it's super quick because, they have all of that background in there and I can see some personality in their posts and I can grab some little insights. And sometimes I struggle to come up with one or 2 points. So, this is a page that really represents you, and whether you think people are looking at it or not, they almost certainly are. So I think it's worth all of our time, to just really lean into upgrading the quality of the content there, taking advantage of the different elements and making sure we're on top of all the different features we can use. So, alrighty then, we need to get those curiosity muscles working a bit more. Each week we're going to be doing this. I'm going to bring to your attention another app or something that I came across. And given we're in the sort of professional office space with LinkedIn being our interview today, then the app I'd love you to take a look at is called Hypercontext. And you can find them at hypercontext.com. Now, this is a tool that helps you streamline internal meetings, team goals, and sort of get everybody's morale all on the one page, and creates automatic workflows that help make this much easier. This can turn sort of really dull or even awkward one-on-one meetings into meetings that have high impact and high impact discussions. Your team member could take ownership of the one-on-one agenda. They can share their feedback on some things that you wanted to talk about. You can assign follow-ups. That you can really foster accountability in a team. And it even has 500 conversation starters to get that sort of meeting going so that it can get people conversing and relaxing. In terms of team meetings, then, your meetings, they sit in your calendar, whichever one you use. It could be Outlook, it could be Google Calendar like we use. Then Hypercontext sits within the meeting when it's booked in your calendar. So it's got a button there that when you open the appointment for the meeting, you click on Take Me to Hypercontext, and there the agenda sits. And so once again, then the team can see what they're going to be covering. They can take notes, they can add links, they can add images, so that when you get to your weekly team meeting or however on it is, whatever the topic is, they've already added in all the things they wanted to cover. Now, during the meeting, team members can add comments, you can assign tasks or follow-ups to different team members, and once the team meeting is done, then the minutes of that meeting, essentially the way you've been interacting with the agenda and the follow-up tasks, get automatically sent to all the attendees. So it's just one of those narrow tools that just streamlines a particular functionality for a business. I think we'd all agree that internal meetings can get a bit dry. They can struggle. We maybe lack a bit of structure. And also it's difficult for people to remember what they want to cover. They can at any point go, I want to bring that up in the team meeting. They go to the calendar appointment. They open it up, click on the Hypercontext agenda, and they just add it, and it'll appear then when the meeting starts. So I'd encourage you to check it out. Well, that's all we've got for this week. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you'll get your AdviceTech fix magically sent to you each Friday. And if you'd like a speaker at your next event, or you'd love to suggest me as a speaker for the next event you attend, then I'd love to talk to your audience on the 7 habits of bionic advisors and the secrets to tech-powered human-centric advice. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn if that's something of interest. My LinkedIn profile is PeiterMD, PEITAMD. Otherwise, I'll look forward to turning up in your earbuds next week. And remember, Advice Explorers, stay curious.